The final whistle hadn't even blown when cameras found Folarin Balogun standing alone. Moments earlier, a red card had ended his night, and, everyone believed, his World Cup quarterfinal. The rule was the simplest one in football. Automatic suspension. No debate. No exceptions. Ever. Belgium started preparing for an American team without its best striker. Pundits rewrote their predictions. The story looked finished. Then, less than 24 hours later, it wasn't. FIFA reversed the ban. No real explanation. Just a decision that left the entire football world asking one question: how? Before you find out how far this actually went, drop a quick comment with where you're watching from, because trust me, by the end of this you're going to have opinions, and I want to see them. Now let's get into it. Because hours later, the story got bigger. Reports confirmed the President of the United States had personally called FIFA's president before that decision was made. This wasn't about tactics anymore. It wasn't about Belgium. It wasn't even about Balogun. It was about whether the biggest tournament on earth had just been bought. The world gave it a name, BaloGate. And what happened next turned a golden favor into the most humiliating night of America's World Cup. The United States looked in control against Bosnia and Herzegovina, closing in on a first World Cup quarterfinal in over 2 decades. Every tackle mattered. Every clearance was celebrated. Then, deep into the match, Folarin Balogun chased a loose ball, stumbled into a challenge, and the referee reached for his pocket. Red card. No warning, no hesitation. Balogun stood frozen for a second, shook his head, and walked off alone while his teammates surrounded the official in disbelief. The USA survived and won the match, but the celebration felt hollow before it even started. Because everyone in that stadium knew what came next. Balogun would miss Belgium. No appeal. No gray area. The rule had never once been bent at a World Cup, and nobody expected it to start now. Analysts called it a disaster for the Americans. Belgian media quietly celebrated, their toughest opponent had just lost his most dangerous weapon before a ball was even kicked. Inside the US camp, there were no complaints. The suspension was accepted as fact. Training continued without him. But while both teams prepared for the biggest match of their tournament, phones were already ringing behind closed doors. By morning, football would wake up to a decision nobody saw coming. The headlines the next morning didn't match anything anyone expected. FIFA announced Balogun was free to play. No lengthy hearing. No precedent. An obscure clause nobody had ever used at a World Cup was suddenly pulled out, for exactly one player, on the host nation. Then came the detail that turned a football story into a global one. Donald Trump confirmed it himself. He had personally called FIFA President Gianni Infantino to push for a review. Then he posted online, thanking FIFA for reversing a great injustice. Belgium tried to appeal. FIFA told them they had no standing, despite the decision directly deciding who they'd play. Read that twice. UEFA called it a red line being crossed. A European commissioner reminded everyone that sporting decisions are supposed to belong to sporting bodies, not politicians. Even the referee who sent Balogun off got dragged into it, publicly branded suspect by the president himself, forcing his own football federation to step in and defend him. Meanwhile, Balogun returned to training. Every sprint, every smile, became a headline. By the time both teams landed in Seattle, this wasn't USA versus Belgium anymore. It was a question the whole football world wanted answered on the pitch. Belgium didn't hold a press conference. They held a team meeting. The moment the news broke, players sat down together and made a decision: they'd let their football do the talking. Captain Yuri Tielemans later admitted it plainly: the room agreed on one thing, and one thing only. Outside the stadium, their fans marched in chanting, "FIFA Mafia," loud enough for it to trend before kickoff. Commentators couldn't stop replaying the red card, searching for an explanation that never came. Every preview, every panel, every headline circled back to the same three words: BaloGate. Not Belgium's attack. Not America's defense. Just the favor. Inside FIFA's own building, President Infantino prepared to sit in a private suite for the match, the very decision he'd approved now hanging over the biggest game of the round. The Americans tried to stay calm. Press conferences got shorter. Every question aimed at the squad somehow still ended up back on Balogun. Belgium, meanwhile, quietly adjusted their game plan, not out of fear, but focus. By kickoff, one team was carrying a controversy. The other was carrying a grudge. The tunnel in Seattle was deafening. American flags. Home advantage. A reprieve striker walking out like nothing had happened. Then the football started, and the football did not care about a single phone call. 9 minutes in, Belgium's Charles de Ketelaere ghosted in behind a flat-footed American defense and tapped in from close range after the USA failed to deal with a simple ball into the box. 1-0, and the stadium went silent. To their credit, the Americans hit back. Malik Tillman found space and drilled one home to level it, and for a few minutes, Seattle dared to believe the favor had actually paid off. It didn't last. Belgium's forward simply bullied 38-year-old USA captain Tim Ream in the air, outjumped him, outtimed him, and headed his side back in front. Whatever momentum the equalizer had built died right there on the turf with the captain. Then came the moment that turned a defeat into a humiliation. The USA goalkeeper raced off his line to clear a long ball forward, got there first, and then, inexplicably, hesitated mid-clearance. Belgium pounced. The ball squirmed loose, rolled to an open man, and it was 3-1 before the crowd could even process what they'd just watched. A gift, entirely self-inflicted. Late on, Belgium added a fourth, just to remove any doubt. Final score, 4-1. In Seattle. On home soil. With the reprieve striker on the pitch the entire match, and completely, anonymously invisible. Here's the part that stings the most: Belgium's coach didn't even use his strongest side. He rested his two biggest attacking names for most of the game, only bringing them on once it was already 3-1. He beat the favored host nation while holding some of his best players in reserve. The moment the final whistle blew, Belgium's official account posted 2 words: "Overturn this." They knew exactly what they were saying. Here's the detail that makes this whole story sting even harder once you actually think about it. All that political capital, all those phone calls, spent restoring an attacker to a team whose real, obvious weakness was its defense. Everyone paying attention already knew it. The USA backline had looked shaky for months, quietly covered up by soft group stage opponents. Against a team that could actually punish it, it fell apart exactly as predicted. No disciplinary clause fixes a 38-year-old captain losing a header. No presidential phone call has ever kept a ball out of a net. To be fair, and it's worth saying, the red card itself really was harsh. Many neutral observers agreed it was too severe a punishment for a clumsy, unintentional challenge. The USA's coach wasn't wrong about that. And both Trump and Infantino insisted the process was legitimate, not political. But here's the problem with accepting a favor nobody else in the tournament could get: the moment your president calls the referee suspect, and thanks FIFA for reversing an injustice, you've given up the right to be seen as the victim. You don't get to rewrite the rulebook and then act shocked when the football world lines up against you. Belgium moved on to face Spain in Los Angeles, carrying more than just a win, a point, brutally and thoroughly made. But outside the stadium, almost nobody was talking about the football itself. Belgium's goalkeeper said afterward that his team had been shown a lack of respect, and had just proven exactly who the better side was. Their midfielder put it even more simply: there is always justice somewhere in life. For the Americans, this wasn't just a heavy loss. It was a campaign that had promised belief, ending under a cloud that had nothing to do with the scoreline. Players walked off in tears. Most of them had nothing to do with any phone call. They just had to wear the consequences of it, in front of 80,000 people and a watching world. And there's a strange twist buried underneath it all. FIFA, the organization that bent its own rulebook to please one nation, may quietly be relieved it ended exactly like this. Because a 4-1 doesn't leave room for asterisks. It just leaves the truth. You can phone the most powerful man in football and rewrite the rules overnight, but you cannot phone in a clean sheet. So here's the real question, was FIFA right to reverse that ban, or did they hand Belgium the motivation to end America's World Cup in the most brutal way possible? Type your answer in one word, justice, or scandal. I want to see which one wins the comments. And if this story kept you hooked till the end, you already know what to do, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the quarterfinals are only getting spicier from here, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Drop your take below. Let's see it.